Hey everyone, I hope you are having a great Sunday ahead of this holiday season here. This week of Christmas and Hanukkah has been going on. And I am Steven Drapkin, the VPPR of Speak and Lead Toastmasters, but more importantly, we have a very special guest here tonight. We have the 2024 world champion of public speaking here, Luisa Montalvo, for this edition of the Speak and Lead Learning Series. So I'd like to hand it off to Luisa Montalvo.
Hello, hello, and good evening, good morning, or good afternoon from wherever you hail from. Let me go ahead and set up here. This is going to be a session that I have comprised 18 steps on what I feel are probably some of the most important things you would like to put together. And if you do have a speech already written up, that's usually the best thing to do. It's usually good to take your speech and then go back and look at the 18 steps instead of looking at the 18 steps and then trying to write a speech. If you have talent, unlike myself, I then go ahead and do it the way I think no one would ever do it. So we're all unique in our own way. Here we go. So this is 18 steps, and I am in my little outside studio here, accompanied with my 7 dogs. So if you hear barking, it's probably me trying to tell them to get out of the studio. All right, with the 18 steps before, and I love to preface this with the fact that before you even learn about the 18 steps, you're going to have to ask yourself, as I did numerous times, why are you doing this? Why are you giving a speech? Why are you competing? And again, this doesn't have to do with just Toastmasters or just writing an international speech, winning winning speech for the contest. It's ask yourself, how much time am I going to dedicate to this project? And with the answer to that, it will tell you just how much time you're going to dedicate to it, and therefore giving you the results that hopefully you are wanting. So, because I'm opposite in so many things, the older I get, the better I can see tiny, which for most people, it's the other way around. So, I've taken off my glasses. Okay, here we go. Step number one is when writing your speech, make sure it's going to be relatable to your audience. You see, if I got up here and spoke about how to change a tire, chances are, if your audience is 50% women and 50% men, I'm going to lose 50% of the audience because women might not care how to change a tire. And the ones that do care already know how to. And some of the men probably won't even want to listen either because I already know this. Why would I be listening to this? So if you can make it relatable to your audience, and more importantly, know who your audience is, that will determine whatever you're speaking about is going to be influential or memorable for them. Number two, oh, real quick, going back to number one. So in 2019, I gave a speech on racism and didn't realize there are actually parts, countries in this world that don't experience racism. So I feel my topic fell short because I did not know my audience. So try to know your audience. Number two, you're like, okay, Luisa, how do I come up with what I'm going to talk about? So the what I do is anytime, and I think this is so important, especially with the Toastmaster genre, is you're going to go on emotions. When you talk about emotions, this gives you connection with anybody around the world. Why? Sometimes racism, no. Changing a tire, maybe not. But emotions, it doesn't matter where you come from in this world, you go through emotions. So let me give you an example. I had just moved here and went down to the store and I was going to buy some groceries. And I pulled into the parking lot. But right before I pulled into the parking lot, this idiot cuts me off and almost hits my car. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, I'm thinking, okay, nobody here knows how to drive but me. So I get down, get my stuff, come back home. And then I realized I forgot some ingredients. And I said, oh my gosh, I got to go back. So I'm going back, pull into the parking lot. And guess what? Again. Some other person almost cuts me off, almost hits my car, and now I'm upset. Well, every time I go through an emotion, right now I'm going through frustration, I'll grab my phone, I'll go to voice memo or any recording device you have, and I'll hit record and say, oh my gosh, I just came down to the store to buy some groceries, and this idiot cuts me off. Oh my gosh. Okay, I recorded a 10-second, 15-second snippet of my emotions, and that's it. And you put the phone down, stop recording. Well, the second time it happened, I grabbed my phone and said, my gosh, oh, geez, I almost got hit again. Now I'm really frustrated, and I'm really frustrated. Stop recording, put the phone down. The third time, which is a few days later, I'm going back to the store. Guess what happens? Again, somebody cuts me off. I'm pulling in the parking lot. Now I'm mad. I'm ready to get down and confront the guy. And the guy's walking towards me. And he says, ma'am. I said, yes. He says, you just pulled into the parking lot. I almost hit you. I said, yes, you almost did. He said, you know you're in the wrong lane to turn, right? Uh, Oh, I'm the idiot. Oh, I'm the idiot. Okay, hang on. Let me grab my phone. Okay, guess what, guys? I'm the idiot. And so there you go. Now, what you do anytime you come across any kind of emotion, sadness, happiness, frustration, anger, whatever it is, grab your phone. And you just do 10 little 15-second snippets, and then when you go back at the end of the month, you're like, okay, I was an idiot. Do I want to share with everybody that I was an idiot when I was trying to get into the parking lot? Maybe not. Well, if you do, because I think the more you expose yourself and you're vulnerable, that's when the audience is going to listen. Nobody wants to hear about how you went to college or how you won world champion. Nobody wants to hear that. Okay. They want to hear, oh my God, you hear? Luisa's an idiot. Yeah, yeah, I heard that. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. That's what we want to hear, something we can relate to. So you go back and you take those little snippets and you start writing what I would consider will be your outline. And from there, you're going to expand on that and go from there. It for a while there, all every time I went to district conferences and it was international speech, it was something tragic, like somebody had died, or somebody's son had to donate his organs, or their mother was dying of cancer. And for me, that was just too heavy. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you make it more lighthearted, you're going to get more of a reaction and emotion from your audience. And I think that's what you're going to go for. Um, it doesn't have to be a tragic experience, but a life lesson nonetheless. Okay, so number three, I think your speech should have a personal story relating to the main idea of your speech. Because I feel that if you give a speech and there's no personal story, then it's a book report. It's just a report. You're talking about statistics. You're talking about stuff that we're children. We are all children inside, and we want to hear a story. So tell us about your story. And the more your story relates to what it is you're talking about, gosh, to me, that's just golden. So give us a story, whether you were embarrassed, like my story about going to the grocery store, that kind of story, because that's when you draw your audience in. And I don't think I mentioned it later, but if you don't have your audience in the first 30 seconds, chances are, guess what they're doing? They're on their phone, they're scrolling, they're thinking about what they're going to eat for dinner that night. What do you have to do tomorrow? You've lost them. So, if anything, make it something that everybody will want to be engaged with. So, number four is interject appropriate humor, but not too much. And why do I say not too much? For one, I think interjecting humor is such a excellent segue to get into any kind of topic you want to talk about. Uh, for those of you who haven't seen my speech from last year, I start out with clear, clear. I mean, I am dying. And I said, you know what? My heart stopped for 6 minutes. Best sleep ever. Now, you see, with the humor, interjecting the humor, what I've done, not just making my audience laugh, but I've now given my audience permission to laugh at whatever tragedy I'm going to talk about. Because if I'm laughing about me being dead, oh my gosh, The world's my oyster, so I can take it anywhere I want to. So that to me would be interjecting appropriate humor. But why not too much, Lisa? This is specifically, I think, for the International Speech Contest. When it was 2024, and when I was competing, a gentleman got up there on stage and to me gave a brilliant, humorous speech. And I thought he was going to win. However, when I asked people after the contest, why do you think he didn't win? I said, well, that should have been a humorous speech, not an international speech. I went, okay, noted. So there's a fine line, a balance, and you're going to have to find that yourself. But that's why I say not too much humor. Number five is something that I love to do, and there's multiple reasons why I do it, and I discuss that here in a minute. And it's have your introduction relate to your ending. When I say relate to it, so my introduction for my 2024 speech was clear because I was being they were trying to revive me with defibrillator pads, and my last word in my speech is clear, and I'm looking at the audience saying, "Am I clear?" This does so many things. This takes your speech 360 degrees from beginning to end, and it allows your audience to realize, oh, that's the end of her speech. So to me, have your introduction, doesn't necessarily have to be the same word. In 2019, I started my speech with stop, and my last word was go. So something like that. And this is just something I'm telling you about that I think works for many reasons. Number six, again, I spoke about this just a little bit. It's a similar attention grabbing introduction and ending. And again, you want the attention grabbing, but something similar to what you started with should be something similar to what you end with so that people will know, oh, this is the ending. And I think I talk about it here in a few minutes, but it's what I call false endings. And I found myself doing this a couple of months ago at a meeting. I understand that when you get on stage and you start speaking, you get nervous. And for some reason, I was nervous. I think it was because I had all the upper people of my district there. Lark Doley was there. She's been an international president. So I'm trying to impress and I'm trying to look good. And just an example, I said, and so that is why I feel that if you're going to adopt a dog, you need to go to your shelter, local shelter. And people got ready to applaud, and I got nervous. I said, because every time you adopt a dog from a shelter, you're saving a life. And people wanted to start applauding, but then I kept going. So to me, that's a false ending. I should have just stopped when I said, so please adopt from a shelter. And that would have been it. That way, that gives the audience, oh, okay, that's the ending. Now we can applaud. So no false endings, which is a mistake I made a couple of months ago. The number seven is no bland topics, but if it's something that everyone talks about all the time, then make it unique and interesting. Well, Luisa, what's a bland topic? To be honest with you, if I hear another speech about leadership, oh my God, I think I'm going to just get up and walk out because everybody talks about leadership. Really? Okay, so if it's going to be about leadership, tell me something about Hitler. Tell me something about something that's going to make me think, oh, I've never heard this before. So that's what I mean about if you're going to speak about a bland topic, something everybody's already talked about, make it unique and interesting. Number eight is my favorite. One of my favorites, slightly push the level of uncomfortable statements. Last year, when I felt I might win at district, I started working on my speech because, for those of you that don't know, when you're competing, you can take the same speech from club all the way to semifinals. However, if you win with that speech at semifinals, when you go on to finals, guess what? It's got to be a different speech. And not too many people know that. So believe it or not, when you are watching the international speech contest, if you watch the semifinals speeches, those speeches are gold because the speaker has perfected that speech, practice that speech over and over again. So when you wind up watching the final speech, you're like, well, those weren't that good. You're right. Nobody says, I'll use my third or fourth best speech to see if I can make it to the finals. No, we use our best speech all the way up to the semifinals. So the semifinals, to me, many times are better than the finals speech. But if you're going to give a speech and if you're going to give uncomfortable statements, because last year I presented my final speech when I thought I was going to win district and I mentioned God. And everybody came up to me and said, Luisa, don't mention God. You don't want to do that. Um, Not only did I mention it in my speech, but I mentioned the word God 8 times in my speech. And the reason why I did it is because to me, it was more important to get my idea across than to walk off the stage with a trophy. I had the Storkies, which are a couple in Toastmasters. They've been in Toastmasters a very long time. I had Miss Storky come up and say, I remember you. You spoke about when your mother would make you wear scratchy, itchy dresses when you were a kid. And I looked at her, I said, you remember that? She said, yes. I said, I gave that speech over 8 years ago, but yet she remembered my speech. So to me, it's more important that my audience remember me than me walking off the stage with a trophy. So if you're going to push the level of uncomfortableness, make sure that you stay true to yourself. However, listen to people when they give you evaluations, and you will need to be the decider, the decision maker on whether you're going to leave your uncomfortable statements in your speeches or not. Number 9 is the theory of 3. Now, I didn't know I was doing this, but the theory of 3 is using 3 examples of something. When your brain hears something one time, okay, it heard it. When it hears it twice, your brain says, wait, did I just hear that? But when you give it 3, now your brain detects a pattern, and the brain loves patterns. So if you do something or say something 3 different times, it brings it home. For an example, 2024, when I got up and gave my speech about people telling me what I could and could not do, I went into the power of 3. I said, I'm no longer listening to people telling me I can't do things. When my band director told me I couldn't play drums, I said, really? Watch me. And when I was on stage, I was standing. I wasn't walking yet. Well, I'm still not walking, but I was holding on to a chair. I said, my doctor said I would never walk or leave my wheelchair. I pushed the chair to a side and I said, really? Watch me. And I took 2 steps. And the third thing was, I said, did you know that my best friend tells me I can't cook? I'm like, really? No, she's right. I can't cook. But I used the power of 3 and I punctuated the humor at the end. And to me, that made it effective. People were remembering, oh, what people told her she couldn't do, she did. So with the power of 3, that brings your message home. Number 10, which I'm going to say is rather important, it's the call to action from your audience. If not, why are you giving your speech? If you have no call to action, what's the purpose? You're just getting up there to share what you did last Tuesday. Well, that's not interesting to anybody. But in that speech, I asked my audience, I said, please don't wait 64 years to do something that you didn't think you could do. Don't listen to what people tell you, because 64 years passes like that. So that was my call to action. What you don't want to do is you don't want to attack your audience. You don't want to say, hey, did you know you're making mistakes right now? Nobody likes this. Nobody likes that. We all know we make mistakes. Trust me, we don't need to be reminded. But when you say, don't make the same mistake I made, now you're empathetic and you want to listen to what I have to say. And then you stop and think, maybe she's right. And that's what you want your audience to do. So number 11. Oh, wait, where'd it go? Hang on, I think it's. Oh, no. Oh, here it is. Um, does this trophy make me look fat? Why would I say that? Did you know? And I'm sure people don't even think about this. You're about to get on stage. You're very nervous about what's going to happen, whether you're going to be able to give your speech the way you want to give your speech. But did you know that before you've even uttered a single word of your speech while you're walking on stage, what's your posture look like? Is your hair brushed? Do your clothes match? Are they ironed? Are you smiling? Are you exuding confidence like, I got this? Because your judges, even though you haven't uttered a single word yet, are already judging you. And why is that? You know why? Because we don't have AI judges. You see, AI judges wouldn't be looking for that. They would be analyzing your speech. But because we don't have AI judges, we have human judges. So before you've uttered a single word, they're already judging you. So why not give them something that says, oh, wow, look at her. She's walking on stage. She looks confident. Everything's put together. She brushed her hair, brushed her teeth. She doesn't smell bad, whatever the case may be. But she looks good. I think I'm going to listen to her. You've already started making assumptions. So they might as well be good assumptions about you wanting to listen or the judges wanting to listen. Number 12, props. Small or draw attention optional. Luisa, do I use props in my speech? I have no idea. Is there a prop that's going to add value to your speech? The first speech I gave, I was talking about how in the sixth grade I was told I couldn't play drums because I was short and because I was a girl. So I start my speech with my drumsticks. A friend of mine came up and said, man, you ought to walk on the stage with a bass drum, big old bass drum strapped to you. And I'm like, what? Why would I do that? It's to me a distraction to your speech. I think if I walk out with drumsticks and tap my drumsticks, my audience is intelligent enough to know I'm talking about drums. I don't need something so large that's a distraction to the speech and a distraction from the speaker. So if you're going to use props, my recommendation is for you to use something that will lend value to the speech, but not take away value from the streets. No distraction from your speech. One mistake I made in 2019 was when I got on stage at the finals. I had all these props and I had not really fully rehearsed. I did not know the stage was going to be huge. And so I threw my props on the floor, which to me was a mistake because for those people that are watching what I'm doing with my props, they're probably wondering, oh, is she going to pick up that prop again? Is she going to use it again? What's she doing with now? I'm distracting them and they're not even listening to what I'm saying. They're watching what I'm doing with the props, which is not the purpose of the prop. It's to add value, not take away value. I I realized when I threw them on the floor, on the ground, and then when I walked off stage, I said, wow, I shouldn't have done that. And I think it might have cost me points. Do not bring your prop out in your speech until you're going to use it. And once you've used it, put it back away so it's not a distraction. So don't keep it in your hand. Don't throw it on the ground like I did. Don't make that mistake because now people are watching that and they're not watching you. So that's just my recommendation. Number 13, and this one's a truly easy one. Thank you, COVID. And for people that think, well, there's nothing good that came out of COVID, we are now, such as I am right now, coming to you virtually. I'm not even there live. So when you've written your speech and now you want to start practicing it, go across the world, find Toastmaster clubs, or if you're not in Toastmasters, find friends that you know that are across the world and say, hey, I've got something. Could you give a listen to it and tell me what you think? Because when you start getting perspectives and analysis from people around the world, it's better than just getting evaluations from your home club or your family or your friends. Oh gosh, don't ask your family and friends what they think about your speech. You know, if you're like my mom, oh me, that was so good. I loved it. You don't need to hear that. Okay. You don't need to hear that. You need to hear, you know who I ask? Usually, if I know somebody's going to be competing against me, I'll say, hey, can you listen to my speech? Because those competitors, ooh, they don't like you. So they're going to tell you everything that's wrong with your speech. And isn't that what you want? Absolutely. That's what I wanted. I would always go to a friend of mine and say, hey, can you listen to my speech? And he would say, sure, Luisa, go ahead. Let me hear it. And he would give me honest evaluations and critique. And it helped me so much. So if you can, present to as many clubs as you can around the world. In the end, even though everybody told me not to say God and I said it anyway in my speech, be true to yourself. Because if you write a speech to please everyone, you please no one. Number 14, oh my gosh, probably one of the most important ones is cut down your speech to 6 minutes. And I say this because in Toastmasters, our speeches are supposed to be from 5 to 7 minutes with a 30-second grace period. You remember that guy that I was telling you about that wrote a really good humorous speech? I thought he was going to win last year. Do you know what his time was? 7 minutes and 33 seconds. So imagine working on a speech for almost a year, I think minimum, making it to the finals, getting on the final stage. You are now one of the top 8 speakers in the world. You get up there, you give a humorous speech, your audience is rolling in the aisles laughing. Guess what you can't do once your audience has gotten on that bandwagon of laughing at everything you say? You can't say, okay, be quiet because what I'm going to say next is even funnier. You can't do that. You can't stop your audience. So he went over 3 seconds. He wasn't the only one. Another contender also went over 3 seconds. And another contender, and I think I bring this up here, is she mentioned someone, a source. She mentioned the song, had the whole audience singing the song, but then did not go back and cite her source. She didn't say that's We Will Rock You by Queen or Freddie Mercury or Brian May. She didn't give credit to her source. And so she was disqualified for that. Another important thing that I'm going to ask you to do is if you are competing in the Toastmasters International Contest, please read the rule book. It changes every year. It would kill me if I knew that you went, prepared an amazing speech, made it all the way to the finals, and then are disqualified for a technicality. So in 2024, 3 speakers out of the 8 were disqualified. And I don't think that's ever happened. So please pay attention to that. Keep your speech down to 6 minutes if you can, and read the rule book. Number 15. I'm going to be very sensitive when I say this, but you do know that your eye contact, your hand gestures, your voice inflections, your enunciation of everything. Here's the thing. English is my first language. However, I realized thanks to my iPhone that I would hit the record button and I would say, okay, I need to go to the groceries. I need to go to the store for groceries. And I would look to see what it had transcribed and it said fur, F-U-R. Fur groceries? I didn't say fur. No, you did, Luisa. The word is for, like the number 4, but it's F-O-R. So I realized now, oh, okay, I need to go to the grocery store for groceries, not for groceries. But down here in South Texas, we're all a little lazy, so we say for instead of for. So with that, I was able to detect and realize what words I was saying. So I tried to practice on my enunciation and pronunciation. So if English, even if English is not your first language, if it is, whether it's not, if you have an accent, you might want to slow down when you give a speech. You also might want to try to transcribe to see what is actually transcribing. And that way, you know what it is you might need to work on. The saddest thing would be for you to have an amazing speech, get on stage, and then the audience not be able to understand you. So please work on diction, enunciation, and pronunciation. Okay. So number 16, You've written the perfect speech. You've practiced. You've got everything down right. You've got your small props. You've got your enunciation. You've got your timing. You sprinkle a little bit of humor. You started, you ended with the same thing, the right thing, the good thing. You get on stage, you deliver, and you don't win. You don't even place. You know what? All these steps really don't mean anything. You just have to do four things. Do you want to know what those four things are? I'm going to tell you. Not even going to charge you. Ready? You have to say the right thing at the right time on the right day to the right judges. Say the right thing at the right time on the right day to the right judges. Luisa, how do I do that? I have no idea. I have no idea. Because if I did, I'd be a millionaire right now. Well, why is that? Again, we're going back to no AI judges. And let me give you an example. So you're watching Miss Universe and you're like, oh my gosh, Miss Costa Rica is beautiful. Did you see her twirling that fire? And her answers were spot on and she looked great in her gown. Oh, it's Miss Mexico. Wait, what? Why did she win? Why did she win? Because they're human judges. They're not AI judges. But the thing is, what do you do when you don't win? Number 17 is you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, you cry a little, which is what I did. I'm going to be very honest with you. The first time I lost, I cried. Oh, and FYI, I've lost over 40 contests. Over 40 contests. But do you know what the best thing is that I learned when I lost? The first time, guess what I did? I took it personally. Oh my gosh, what's wrong? Why didn't they like me? What did I do wrong? You know what? I didn't do anything wrong. Let me give you an example. You're going to the store, you see some shoes, great shoes. There's a black set of shoes and there's a brown set of shoes. Same price, same size, same style, everything. But you pick the brown pair of shoes. Did the black pair of shoes do anything wrong? No. Did they fit differently? No. Were they a different price? No. So why didn't you pick the black shoes? Because that day you wanted brown shoes. And on that day that you give your speech, the judges already had an idea of what they wanted. The black shoes didn't do anything wrong. So when you give up and give a speech and don't win, guess what? You didn't do anything wrong. You just weren't what the judges were looking for. That's why you have to say the right thing at the right time on the right day to the right judges. So please remember that. The number 17 was you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you go back to what is number 18? Go back to number one. Why are you doing this? Do you have thick skin? Because that's what it's going to have to take for you to be able to get past 40 losses. You see, a winner is just a loser that tried one more time. That's all it is. So ask yourself, how serious are you about this? The only reason, not the only reason, the main reason why I competed was because my mother was such a fabulous speaker. I mean, she stood in front of 200 Avon women every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. giving a business meeting. And she didn't yell, she didn't scream, she didn't use any weird tactics. She was always so uh, poised and just, God, I would watch and say, one day I want to be just like her. I want to be able to speak to an audience and move them without theatrics. And that's exactly what she did. And that's what I've been trying to do. So the reason I was competing was to try to make my mother proud so that I could say, look, mom, look what I won. So find out what the reason is why you're competing or why you're giving a speech. If this is going to the business aspect, why are you giving the speech? What is your main goal behind giving the speech? What is the purpose? Do you want to increase sales? Do you want to let people know, hey, we're going in the wrong direction? Do you want to influence? Do you want to empower? Do you want to motivate? Ask yourself what that is. And that's going to be your question again with the call to action. Why are you doing this? I hope I've given a few tips. And of course, these are tips that I've accumulated over the last 18 years that I would compete, and what I feel are some of the foundational steps that you need to be able to give a good speech, or at least to succeed, or maybe even place. Again, I hope they've been helpful. I hope this is going to empower you. And if you have any questions whatsoever, my email, even though I'm terrible at checking my emails, is montalvo.luisa@yahoo.com. If I don't answer you the first time, just keep messaging me and I'll get to you, I hope. But if you have any questions, I don't know, Stephen. I'm not sure how you want to take over this part. I'm not sure if there's time allotted for questions. And gosh, I didn't even ask for a timer, so look at that.
Yeah, there's time, and Rob has his hand up. So Rob,
Okay, Rob.
Hi, Luisa. Thank you
Hello.
for those wonderful tips. So, as you're putting together the speech and practicing, uh, at some points, are you focusing in on what the specific criteria that the judges might be looking for? Like, for instance, at what point would vocal variety be good to introduce, or hand gestures? And sometimes that's a struggle in terms of trying to do it naturally, where it doesn't seem like you're just doing it just so that the judges can check off that box.
That is correct. No, I never go and look at what the judges are looking for. I go give my speech. And I think what we're doing now that may also be helpful is we've gone from the 1995 when Mark Brown, before Mark Brown got on stage in the Toastmaster International Speech Contest, and and the speakers stood behind the podium and didn't move. And we went from that to somebody actually took a leap of faith and stepped out from behind the podium, and then they started. And then they started getting, when people are going to give a speech, they'll go, "Okay, today I'll be giving a speech on." And you see how the voice has totally changed. It went from conversational to what I call back in the day, "Okay, I'm going to give a speech. Everybody listen. I need to have a good voice." So we went from behind the podium to listen to me to let's get a little dramatic to now let's add humor to I think what we're going through now is a conversational style of speech. And I think with that, you get more of the audience's attention. But I never go and say, "Okay, let me see. The judges want humor. Okay, let me think of a joke I can put in." No, no, no. It's to me, it's going to have to be the opposite. It's going to be something you want to do and then go back and check. Okay. It's like when you go on a trip. Okay, you want your kerosene lanterns, you want your sleeping bag, you want this. Okay, let's go back and look at the list. What did I forget? Then you go back and you check off, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this. Now, these are just examples. You don't have to follow every single step of the criteria. It's something that you want to do. But I go back, look at my speech, and then I'll grab the judge's ballot and say, okay, what are they looking for here? Did I check off most of the boxes? That's my suggestion. You, of course, it's your speech. You can do it any way you'd like. That's what I recommend.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Anyone else?
yeah, thank you, Louisa, for answering Rob's question. Does anyone else have a question? We have a lot more time allotted, and we have Louisa here, so you might as well ask a question.
Another thing I want to do, people have asked me, how do I keep it fresh? How do I make it sound like it's the first time I've given a speech? One thing I like to do is I'll grab my phone and I'll hit voice record, and I will write my whole speech out the way I want it to sound, and I will give my speech. And if the recording is perfect, then that's what I go with. And then that is the only thing I listen to for the next couple of months, because everybody sings happy birthday song the same way. It's happy birthday to you. So when you listen to over and over and over to your speech, that first time that you recorded it, it sounds fresh. And that's how, in my opinion, you keep it fresh, by going and reciting it and listening to it over and over the same way. And so it doesn't get boring or old, or you don't sound like you're tired of giving the speech. That was just my suggestion.
And Susie has a question next.
Hi, Luisa. So
Hello, Susie.
I'm first gen Mexicana from San Diego, Chicana, so it makes me so happy to see you. And I was like, damn, she won the international. I'm so proud. Okay,
Thank you,
so I
thank
was like, I
you.
had to be on this call. But so I'm a member of NSA, the local chapter, and I'm becoming a professional speaker, working on that. And I wondered,
And good luck with
um,
that.
say what?
Good luck with that.
Thank you, thank you. One of the things I was wondering is how I'd be curious to if you could talk a little bit more about your process for really getting the speech down good, because one of the things that I run into, I have ADHD, I have a lot of ideas. So one of the things that I run into is that for me, I have to write everything and then I have to cut it down. And it can take me a while to get it down to size, and then making sure I have enough time to practice. I'm assuming you probably practice it in, I don't know, like when I've done some stuff, I will practice in front of the like I'll put the camera up so I can see my body to make sure I'm not like having my back to the audience, things like that. I wondered if you can suggest what are the things you do to write your speech, get focused on, say, those 3 points on the key thing? Do you ever run into if and when you run into like, oh my God, but I have so many things to say? How do you handle that? I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Great question. And what I usually do is you ask yourself, or I ask myself, what is the purpose of my speech? For my 2024 speech, it was, believe it or not, even though I sprinkled it with other things, it was my bout with depression, which I was not even familiar with because I've never gone through depression. And so, right in the middle of my speech, I talk about how my father, I was getting ready to go into therapy after a month after my accident, actually 3 months after my accident. I'm still going through therapy. And I told myself, and I mentioned in the speech, I said, even though my father said quitters cry, I started to cry. And that to me was my lowest point. And I wanted, my main goal of the speech was that I wanted to let my audience know that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to cry as long as we don't stay there. But you have to allow yourself those emotions. And that to me was my goal. That to me was the meat of why I wanted to give the speech. And I sprinkled it with other little things about people finding value in me when I couldn't find value in myself. And so, if I know many speakers will say, stick to one focus area that you want and then just, concentrate on that. And for me, I want to touch or influence or motivate so many people in the audience that I'm going to sprinkle little ideas of so many different things. I do know that I usually start off with a 15-minute speech and then I have to take it down to 6 minutes. I do remember in my very, very early years of competing, I went down to counting syllables because I thought instead of saying, I'm going to the grocery store, I said, I ran to the store. So it's also finding a way to be able to take whatever you have and compressing it into something that's going to give the same effect visually than what you had put down. It's a very hard process to go through because, like you say, you have ADHD, so you want to say so many things. So ask yourself, what are the 3 things I want to get across in my speech? And narrow it down to 3 things. And if you have more than 3 things, guess what? Whatever was left over goes on another speech. So try and narrow it down to 3 things. If you can, narrow it down to two. And if you're really good, narrow it down to one. Now, mind you, I'm not good because I had like 3 or 4 in my speech, but it worked, and thank God. So that to me would be my suggestion. Find out what it is for the purpose of your speech. Try to narrow it down to 3 different topics, and then whatever is left over, that's for another speech. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you for giving me permission to have 3 things, honestly, because I could probably just if I have 3 things, I could probably find a tie-in that ties them all together. So that's like it's about this thing, and then be able to be like, and here's the 3 points about that thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Very good. You can do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, Susie, not to embarrass you, but The meanest dog I have out of my 7, her name is Susie. So he says, "Here's Susie." I went, "Oh, okay, I'm going to listen to Susie." But
And I'm so nice.
right, I believe it. I believe it.
Let's see.
Oh, it looks like Mark wants to chime in. I was going to ask another question, but Mark, go ahead. You go.
I can yield to Rob for a moment. You go. Mine will
Okay.
keep.
All
Go ahead,
right.
Rob. You're on the air.
I think it's a quick one. So just when you said, you need the right speech at the right time to the right judges, right? As you're practicing and you're going everywhere around the world, you're going to be getting lots of feedback. And that feedback is going to differ, right? Because whatever day it is and whatever mood they're in, right? So how do you then take some of that feedback and decide, okay, I like that. I'm not so crazy about that, right? And then how you incorporate that to make your speech better.
That's a great question. Fortunately for me, I already have the trophy, so I don't have to listen to anybody. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. But I still listen to evaluations. However, you basically know what it is you want to get across in your speech. For me, it's going to have to be something so profound that I hadn't even seen it for me to consider altering or changing my speech. I already know the direction I want to go in. I remember when I was competing in 2015 in the humorous contest, I got all this evaluation. I thought I had the perfect speech, and one lady who was Asian in my club came up and said, "Lisa, I don't understand why you're saying what you're saying." And I thought, wait a minute. Here somebody is and doesn't understand what I'm trying to say. Now I need to listen. So what I like to do is when somebody's going to give me an evaluation, I kind of ask them why 5 times. Well, why didn't you like the speech? Well, I didn't like what you were wearing. Okay, well, you know what? Next, move on, because that has absolutely nothing to do with the speech. But when she came up to me and she said, "Well, I'm not understanding why you're afraid of the guy that you're changing the tire for." I said, "Well, because he's a cholo." She says, "I don't know what that is." I said, "Oh, well, why didn't she know?" Because in China, where she came from, they didn't have cholos. So now I realize now I have to expand my description of the gentleman so that the audience knows what I'm faced with. I assumed, because I'm from South Texas, that everybody knew what I was talking about, and she didn't. So evaluations are really good. They're priceless if they have value. So there are many times where I said, like I said, people came up and said, "Well, don't mention God." Well, you know what? I'm going to mention God. And if I don't win, then I don't win because that was important to me. But somebody also came up and said, in the very beginning of your speech, you're talking about the blood and the accident. Not too many people want to hear about that. And I went, "Oh, you know what? You're right. Let me go with just defibrillator pads, clear, clear, so everybody knows I'm in a bad state." So it's when you think, you know what, maybe they're right. That's when you listen because they're trying to help you give a better speech. And unless they're just being hateful or hurtful, their evaluation has value, which is, part of the word evaluation. So listen to what they say. If you feel it's important enough to you, adds value to your speech, then maybe modify your speech. Because again, somebody told me if you try to make a speech for everyone, you make it for no one. Stay true to yourself. That's what I like to do because, like I said, I was competing back in 1989 for a few years, and then I started back up at Toastmasters in 2013. And I'm in this for the long haul. If it takes me 20 years, it's going to take me 20 years. It's fine. Now, if some people are like, "Hey, I've got a clock. I can only do this for the next 4 years." Well, then you have a different approach to it. But I had all the time in the world, so I got on stage thinking, if I don't win, I don't win. I'll be back next year. Great question. Thank you. I hope that answered it.
Yeah, you did. Great examples too. So thank you.
Cool. Cool.
Now it's my turn. Louis,
Yes,
I want to
Mark.
thank I
Mark
want to
with a
thank you,
C.
Mark with a C. Thank you for noticing. I want to thank you for giving the presentation that I really appreciate. I got a lot out of it. Found it very enlightening. I'm going to ask you to elaborate on something you said earlier. You said that you take the speech and you record it. And when you have that perfect recording, you just listen to it. You also said that you practice with the props and those kind of things. I've heard people say that you practice, if you're giving a 5 minute speech, it's 10 times every minute or whatnot. Can you elaborate on the difference between practicing the speech and, and with the props and actually practice speech when you're giving the verbal of the speech? If you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely. What I love to do, a great question, Mark, and I have a joke about your name that remind me at the end about Starbucks. But when I'm practicing my speech, the first thing I want to do, and this is only because back in 1990, I got on stage, thought I had my speech, wow, ready to go. I get up there on humor speech, and 2 minutes into my speech, my brain, for the first time in my life, just shuts off and I cannot remember my speech. I even try to restart my speech. I went even I after that after 1990 that mistake. I even went to the extent of writing the first 5 or 6 words of my speech on my hand because you get on stage and you're like, wait, what are my first words? And so I would look down at my hand and say, oh yeah, those are my first words. So practicing your speech, rehearsing it, I like to get the verbal out of the way. So I'll listen to it over and over, the recording, the recording, the recording. Once I'm comfortable with that, and I even have, like, my dogs will come in and interrupt, and I'm supposed to be able to pick up where I left off. That's how that's how much I would practice it to where I knew what I was going to say next. And then once that is out of the way, which for me is maybe 75% of the challenge, is memorizing something that's 5 to 7 minutes long. Once I've got that out of the way, okay, now I'm ready to practice. I'm on stage. Okay, the verbal is coming, it's flowing, so I'm able to concentrate on everything else that I need to work on. And that's how I do it. That helps me. So I'm not sure if that would be something that you would want to do. Everybody's different, but that's helped me in the last, 12, 13, 14 years. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
Oh, great. Right. And the Starbucks joke is the guy goes up to Starbucks and she says your name because they write your name on the cup so you know it's your drink. And he says, oh, it's Mark with a C. So she spells it C-A-R-C, C-A-R-K, like Cark. I'm like, oh. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Luisa, for answering all these questions. I think we have one more right now from Charlie.
Okay.
I was on mute there for a moment. I was going to ask what resources or tools you typically use to sort of gather information on your audience or your judges, because sometimes you know who you're speaking to, and other times if you're competing, you don't necessarily know who you're talking to, but you can use social media, or if you have a list of names, you don't typically, when you go into contests, sometimes you're saying, okay, I'm going to speak to what's true to me, and you certainly don't want to pander, but what type of, I guess, yeah, what type of sort of resources do you use to source data or information about your audience?
You know what, Charlie? That is such a great question. What I like to do, and this helps me, of course, if I'm competing, is the day before I walk into the room and I look to see what the environment looks like, how it feels. Of course, you do your mic check and all that good stuff. And if you have the luxury of being there, you get to talk to people and see what it is you're actually, uh, who your audience is. I've traveled Europe this last May and June. So before I gave my speech, I got out into the audience. People were there, Toastmasters. I was able to talk with them, converse with them, and I got the feel of who I was going to be giving my workshop and my keynote to. And that was probably one of the best ways that I would have known what to say and how to say it. It's not an easy task to be able to do that when you're just cold turkey going on screen. But for different clubs, like I remember when Stephen had said, hey, can you do this for our club? Remember, we talked about the Oklahoma Thunder basketball team and we talked about this. So I try to remember all that stuff and put myself in that area of where all these speakers that I'm speaking, all these listeners, audience that I'm listening to, this is what they're, this is their world. So I'm just trying to get a small peek into their world in case anything comes up. I mention it. Like I said, Oklahoma Thunder basketball, and everybody goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." Okay. Personally, I don't like them, but that's none of my business. That's none of your business. But I know it's what you like, or it's your world. And all I'm trying to do is get a little opening into your world to be able to give a speech that's going to be more relatable to you and to the audience. So there's a few different ways that you can do that. One is do research on who you're going to, if you're doing this for, especially if you're doing this for monetary gain, find out about the organization, find out about the business, what they're doing, who the top guys are, maybe speak to or reach out to some of the people that you're going to be speaking to and get a feel for what they might think. What are you expecting to get out of, this conference or this speech? And then with that, you're able to go ahead and hone your skills and maybe get out there and give a speech that is going to be interesting to your audience. Gosh, I hope that helped.
Okay. Yeah, does anyone else have any other questions?
I have a question, Luisa. Sí. Luisa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It's
Christian.
Christian.
That's correct.
Christian. Yes.
Luisa, thank you for your time. Thank you for preparing this workshop. I enjoy it. And I want to ask you about the club officers. How do you think club officers can motivate speakers like you to compete in these kind of scenarios, this contest?
How can you motivate someone to
To
compete in
compete.
the contest?
Yeah.
It's really, I think it's cute that the people that are going to want to compete are going to have their hands, it's the teacher that's trying to reach the kid that doesn't want to answer any questions, opposed to the kid that's always got his hand up. Oh, pick me, pick me. I think asking them to compete in a contest when they maybe never would have considered it, say, we'd really like great representation for our club. And I think you've got what it takes to get out there and do it. And you would be surprised sometimes how just having Stephen,
Well,
how just having, no, not you, Stephen. Sorry, wrong Stephen. Yeah, this one's a little vocal guy. He's a little sack of potatoes over here. But just having the 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 will or desire to have faith in someone, to put it out there and say, you know what? I think you'd be really good at this. Why don't you try it? Oh, I could never. No, I think you can do it. And somebody coming up to you and saying, I think you can do something. Like I said in my speech, we will listen to a stranger that values us opposed to listening to ourselves, because we are our best and worst critic. We'll sit there and cut ourselves down to nothing instantly and easily with no effort. But when somebody comes up and says, hey, you know what? I think you'd be really good at this. Why don't you try this? And what's the worst that could happen? Another thing that I forgot to mention is when you lose. Like I said, I've lost over 40 contests. You know what the mistake is that we make? And this is not for just contest people. It's that we take it personally. And you can't do that. Because remember those pair of shoes? The black pair did nothing wrong. They just weren't what the judges were looking for. So don't take the loss personally. If the marriage didn't work, don't take it personally. If the job didn't work, if the speech didn't win, don't take it personally. Get up and try it again. So I think sometimes when you're looking for somebody to compete in your club and you think they've really got it, and even if you don't think they've got it, if you just go up there and say, hey, why don't you try this? Use the excuse of, hey, I've got a leadership role and I can't compete, but I think you'd be really good at it. Just giving somebody that little confidence boost, I think you're able to find people that will step up to the plate, because a lot of us love to be challenged, and a lot of us love to actually be singled out and said, hey, I think you could do this. So those are just my suggestions. Somebody came up to me and said, hey, I think you'd be really good at leadership. And I went, no, I wouldn't. But yet here I am taking leadership roles in my club. So There you have it.
Let's see. We have Pamela, our district director, wrote, what did you write in the chat? Luisa, thank you for taking the time to share your experience with us. Speak and lead. Thank you for offering this valuable session. Unfortunately, I must leave for another meeting. I really enjoyed the time with you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Anytime.
And does anyone else have any questions?
What was the best way to connect with you, Luisa? You're not on LinkedIn, are you?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Oh, okay.
I am on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook. I have Messenger. I have email. I have WhatsApp. I have too many things. Way too many things. Yeah. I think I'm caught up to last year on my emails, but
Okay. I'm gonna look
no.
you up on LinkedIn because that's usually where I connect with people.
There you go. There you
All
go.
right.
That'll work.
Thank you.
That'll work. No, thank you, dear. Appreciate that.
Okay. I think, unless anyone else has any questions, thank you so much, Luisa, for doing this session. You've provided so much information within a short period of time. And before I speak about our club, just provide whatever your closing statements are for the workshop and stay in the meeting to hear about our club, please.
Absolutely. One thing I'd like to mention is that what I've realized is so many people were there to help me get to last year's world stage. And people will say, "Wow, Lucy, you've made it to the top." And I know that a lot of people, when you say you've made it to the top, you think of making it to the top of a mountain. But if you really look at the summit of a mountain, sometimes it's a plateau. And that's what I see. This is a plateau that I've reached, and I had so many people reaching down, lifting me up to be able to get here. And so now that's what I want to do. I want to turn around and reach and try to get anybody else up here with us as great speakers because, again, uh, I've been given this beautiful gift of winning world champion. And it's so euphoric to be able to experience that. I would love for everybody to be able to experience that. And even though I know that's far fetched, I will do anything to try to help somebody to get there because again, it's not the summit or the peak. To me, it's a plateau. And I'm here up here with all these other past world champions, wanting everybody else to join me. And I've got the plateau also of starting the spay and neuter program for my dogs. And I have another plateau over here to be able to help youth when they want to learn how to speak, public speak. So when people say, "Wow, you made it to the top," I think of a plateau, not a peak or a summit. And I'm here to help as much as